everyone. Thank you so much for coming to tonight's panel on homelessness. We really appreciate your time. First of all, we have a few more people than we thought, which is a good thing that didn't happen. But if you needed a slip of paper, please let us know. We have extras. If you'd like to write down a question, you'll have paper on your chair. Right over here, Julie will hand out paper. So order of business. This is a panel to discuss homelessness in our Downers Grove community. And we invited 5 prominent community members to help us answer your questions to the best of their ability. Our goal for this panel is twofold: to walk away with a better understanding of those experiencing homelessness here in Downers Grove, and to explore ways in which the issue of homelessness is being addressed in our own community. So first, a few ground rules, and then I'll introduce our panelists. If you have a question to submit to the group or to an individual panelist, please write it down as legibly as possible and give it to a library staff member. Julie over here, our director, and Brian, just raise your hand. They'll take your piece of paper. If you'd like more, they can also supply some more. You may address your questions to the individual panelists or to the entire group. We'll do our best to answer every question, but this is a 60-minute discussion. We'll hopefully get here by 8 if we can, so we'll do our best. But if there's extra questions, please do pass them off. We'll get to them if we can. Again, with your questions, please limit them to the Downers Grove community addressing homelessness. We understand that homelessness is a national epidemic and is a systemic problem, but we hope to gain a greater understanding regarding our neighbors right here in Downers Grove for this panel discussion. And a request for our panelists, since we're limited on time, please limit your responses to under 5 minutes if possible. I'll indicate, if I can, with a finger, when asking a question, I will indicate to you if the response from each panelist is for a question more preferred, or if a question is addressed to the group. I'll go ahead and introduce our panelists for tonight's discussion. Over here is Bob Barnett, our Downers Grove mayor since April of this year. We have Amy LaFaus, who is the Director of Community Services at DuPage County for Catholic Charities and part of the DuPage Continuum of Care. Next to her is Janelle Robinson. She is the Executive Director of Hope's Front Door, a local nonprofit that serves the homeless. And next to her is Dr. Kevin Russell, the Superintendent of District 58. And at the very end, we have Dr. Hank Healy, who's the District Superintendent of District 99. So, to begin, I will ask each of the panelists, Amy, if we can start with you, and then we can just, whoever else would like to go after that. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and the organization you are representing, and specifically how does homelessness impact your organization?
So, hi, good evening. My name is Amy LaFaus, and I am the Director of Community Services for Catholic Charities. A little bit about myself is that I've been with Catholic Charities for about 9 years and held several different positions there, starting out as a case manager and supervising our largest program, which is our emergency services program, as well as Hope House Shelter. Served as the assistant director, and now I'm currently the director of community services. So Catholic Charities in DuPage County is actually out of the Diocese of Joliet. So that's a common question that we get. We are not out of the Diocese of Chicago. However, the Diocese of Joliet actually covers 7 different counties. So we cover DuPage County, Will County, Kankakee, Ford, Iroquois, Kendall, and Grundy. I think that's 7. So what do we do, and how does homelessness impact Catholic Charities? So our mission is to provide services to people in need and calling to others of goodwill to do the same. So clearly homelessness fits with what Catholic Charities does. So we do provide basic needs assistance out of our Downers Grove office. And so that can look like a lot of different things to different people. We can help with transportation assistance, utilities, if people have a 5-day notice or if they've been shut off. We help with rental assistance and security deposit assistance. And we have a counseling program. We have a shelter called Hope House, which is located in Villa Park. It's a small 18-bed facility. And then we also have different types of supportive housing programs. So we have transitional housing, which is about a 2-year program, and we have permanent supportive housing, which is permanent. with the hope that people will move on and obtain permanent stable housing on their own. So I could go on for more than 5 minutes, but we also have services for veterans and their families, as well as a fairly new immigrant support program. And let's see, if I didn't miss anything. I think I said counseling services as well. So there's counseling.
I'm Janelle Robinson. I'm the executive director of Post Front Door, and we're actually just, you guys hear me?
Not quite. Louder, please.
I'm the executive director of Post Front Door, and actually we're located just across the street. We rent space from First Congregational Church. We've been around for 19 years, and most of the folks who are coming into us have some type of financial or health crisis and lack of resources they need. So we serve the unemployed, underemployed, homeless, disabled, and seniors. And we do so in a couple of different ways. One is through our basic assistance programs, or immediate emergency assistance, and that could be help with transportation, food, medication, access to oral health care, access to vision, because those are gap areas for a lot of people who are uninsured or underinsured. And then we try to connect folks with long-term solutions. And that can be either within our organization, through our financial literacy program, through our jobs program, or through our health education program. A lot of our clients are dealing with issues of anxiety and depression because of lack of resources. So we try and provide some tools to help them navigate all of the different issues that they're facing, but at the same time create some type of plan and organize some of their issues so that they can move forward. I lost my place. So we see about 325 homeless adults and children per year. That doesn't include some of the people coming from the abuse shelters. That would be an additional 90 people. And yeah, I mean, a lot of what we are doing again is to make sure that people don't fall between the cracks, and that's how we are helping the homeless. And also really trying to get ahead of the stream a little bit to make sure that folks don't fall into being homeless. And often we're kind of at an entry point where they can get those immediate services. They can get some of our, take part in some of our education services. We can't provide it. We're going to link them with an organization like Catholic Charities that can help.
I'm Kevin Russell. I'm the proud superintendent of the elementary district here in Downers Grove. We have 13 schools, so 11 elementary schools and 2 middle schools. Hank and I are going to tag team this, so I'll let him introduce himself.
I'm Hank Feely. I'm with the high school, so we have 2 high schools, North High and South High, here in Downers Grove. It's a little over 5,000 students as well. And then we also have a transition center for students that are aged 18 to 21 to prepare them with life skills.
So we have approximately 5,200 students in the elementary school district, and 80 of our students are what we would consider homeless. So there is a big impact on local school districts with homeless students. How that impacts our organization is that every kiddo who comes to our schools deserves the right to an education. And so we have systems in place, some by law, some of the things that we put in place with our school districts to make sure that no matter where the child enters or the situation that they have in front of them, that we still offer them that same educational experience that other students would get who aren't homeless. And so every district by law is required to have a homeless liaison. It's often our directors of special services, and that homeless liaison will coordinate not only inside the school district but outside of the school district as well to make sure that, again, the children have a successful school experience but then are connected with people outside the school when they go home at night.
And we have 77 homeless students currently. That number fluctuates greatly. Last week we were at 68. So it can ebb and flow greatly throughout the year. One of the key pieces in both of our districts is the registration process. As students come in to enroll, our registrars, or the folks that do the registration process, are essential at asking good, quality questions to try to ascertain if a student or a family is homeless. From that, we're usually able to identify our families that are homeless, and many of them are reluctant to share that with us, as you can imagine, as they arrive at school. Especially families that are undocumented is particularly a challenging population if they're both undocumented and homeless. So once they're there, then our homeless liaisons then put together programming and try to figure out what's most appropriate. I'm sure over the course of the evening's discussion, we'll get into some more of those details. Kevin and I could take your whole hour. So.
One of the things I think both school districts, to conclude the introduction, are facing is every year that number continues to grow in our school system. So the numbers that we're seeing in 2019 are not the same numbers that we would have, seen in 1999 or, further back. So our numbers are increasing because more and more people are in what we would consider temporary situations, as they're, maybe transitioning jobs or a domestic violence situation, or they simply just don't have any place to go.
And just to add on to that, so 5 years ago, our homeless numbers were in the 40s per year, and now we're in the 70s.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm Bob Barnett. I'm here in Downers Grove since May of this year. But prior to that, I served on the village council since 2009. The homelessness affects the village of Downers Grove in that we are primarily designed and set up to provide public safety and public works operations department. Public safety is where we encounter and where we manage and where we work with our homeless community. Part of our role is to try and ensure that everybody in our community is treated fairly and equitably and provided health, safety, and welfare management and observation. The truth is, for the village, most of our interaction with homeless comes through our police department, and it comes in fairly acute situations. We have about 1/5 of our police department are trained in crisis intervention. They're specifically trained in some additional mental health aspects, de-escalation, crisis management. That 1/5 is a little bit of a magic number because it essentially means there's always somebody on shift who has those skills. And so we are often in the role of identifying folks who are in kind of critical crisis, acute need, and making connections to other entities. So whether it's charities, most often it's pads. What we generally are doing is trying to observe folks that are really in trouble and help them make connections to people who are providing services like pads. We work regularly with pads. It is very common for us to make connections with pads. We identify people, then in touch with pads. Pads actually comes out and interviews those folks and tries to assess whether there's immediate ways that they can provide help. Thank you, Marge. Shout at me when I'm not talking loud enough, it's a problem. So our role is maybe a little bit different in that we tend to be most engaged in sort of those acute, immediate crisis situations and make connections as opposed to being, say, service providers on a continuous basis.
So, what more, I'm going to do a general question for all of you. What more can be done about homelessness in Downers Grove right now? What more can be done specifically?
I'll start with that. It is one of the things that everybody needs to try and work really hard to remember is that every homeless person is a member of the community who is entitled to the same rights, privileges, and access that everybody else has, that everybody who has a home has. And so we, as you can imagine, if you just think about our community, that's tough to actually ensure. If you're not a resident of a site with an address, a permanent address, there are things that are in the way of you accessing all of those same services. And so being super cognizant of that and looking for ways to try and cause those connections to be made to allow folks to access services in somewhat of an a-traditional manner is something that we can do going forward. We have to all be aware of. As Hank was talking about, imagine being both homeless and undocumented. Now think about yourself and your daily routines of identification, of banking, of run down the list. It becomes a really tough existence. So all of the entities that are here being alert to that and trying to find ways to smooth that process is at least one step.
I think one of the things that we're very fortunate and blessed with in Downers Grove and in DuPage County is that we have so many people who are willing to help support those in need. But I think for the school districts, a lot of people don't realize just how many students are in temporary situations. So things like gift cards, so kids can buy coats, or even small donations of school supplies go a very long way for our kids. And both school districts have things set up where we can take donations for those students to help them out in those situations. But I think one of the biggest shocks to people is when we talk about how much we deal with homelessness in the school system, and people just aren't aware. So educating that it's not just what most of us associate when we think of somebody who's in a homeless situation, that we've got kids as young as 3 and 4 years old in the school districts that are encountering these situations, and how to help support them.
Yeah, at the high school level, I know a lot of people are the idea of donating clothing and those kinds of things, but you can imagine as a high school student receiving clothes donations doesn't allow you to really fit in quite well. So gift cards are always, we do have a clothes closet, but really what we keep in there are either more fashionable clothes that haven't been worn or coats. I mean, coats are always hard to come by. And then the other thing is backpacks. A student showing up and not having any school supplies, and us able to give them a coat, a backpack, and that backpack is full of all the supplies that they need to be successful at school is huge. A lot of those supplies actually come for us as stuff that's left behind at the end of the school year. Students leave it in their lockers, right? So we're very careful to go through and collect all of that stuff. So thank you all parents for your donation. Especially the calculators, those are awesome. And then we have a lot of staff that actually donate a lot of cash so that we can supplement that, because sometimes you just need cash on hand. So we usually have about $400 or $500 in staff donations in cash, just available if we need to plug a gap with something with a student.
So I agree with everything that's been said. I also just want to add events like these we need more of, just not only in Downers Grove, but in all counties, again, just to bring light to the situation and, so we can talk about it and talk about what we are doing and what we do need more of. In addition to that, affordable housing is something that we also need more of. Again, not just in Downers Grove, but really in all of DuPage and probably everywhere. A lot of what we see are that people are working. They're working, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. However, they're making minimum wage, and so minimum wage does not pay for adequate, safe housing. And so affordable housing is a huge need. Also, people have a lot of barriers to getting into housing. They might have some kind of a criminal record from a previous life, or it's something that they did way back when that is now preventing them from accessing housing. So a lot of issues to go into that. Again, that could take the hour, but affordable housing is a need.
Really I'm going to echo a lot of what she said, but I think homelessness it's not solely about housing. It is it's a mental health issue, it's a living wage issue, it's we see people become homeless because they don't have access to the medication that they need and access to even affordable health care. We are seeing it become an issue with age, where we're having a lot of conversations with some seniors in our community who have such limited resources, and they're trying to figure out how to in their house, how to feed themselves, how to pay utility bills, all of those different things. I would also say that it's also a generational issue as well, that we have seen. Like I said, I've been with the organization since 19 years old. I've been there 17 years, and I have seen kids come back who are now older because they were not given the tools to move beyond the situation that they were living in previously. And I think that's for us at the organization, where our financial literacy and money management programs come in to provide some type of tools to kind of break that cycle. And honestly, it could be something as practical as we give out transportation vouchers. It's for homeless individuals and families to be able to get to the different shelters is important. I mean, the shelters can be there, but if you don't have gas, if you don't have a bus pass, if you don't have any of those things, you're not going to be able to get there. And sometimes they can try and pull resources, but it can be a substantial area.
Thank you. Okay, this question might be something for Bob, but it could be anyone else. Why is there no overnight shelter in the summer in Downers
I don't know the answer to that. We do see some seasonality to,
Could you speak up, please?
Sure. The question was, why is there no overnight shelter in the summer? And I don't know exactly the answer to that. The Village of Downers Grove partners with PADS. That's really our primary resource and the primary team that works together in terms of the Village of Downers Grove and serve homelessness. PADS chooses when to run the shelter. I can say that we do see some seasonality to homelessness. We tend to have, if you look at some of the people who are permanently in that condition, it ranges from about 10 to 20 in sort of the immediate downtown Downers Grove area, and there's some seasonality to that. I suspect it's a limited resources issue, most likely. PADS is trying, like everybody, to stretch every penny as far as they possibly can, and those overnight shelters are their volunteer staff, mostly, but they still require resources, and I suspect the emphasis is simply to do that when the weather is most inclement and the immediate physical danger is the worst.
Yes, thank you. Question from the audience. Can Downers Grove house the homeless? I'm guessing the question needs clarification. Village, permanent shelter, can we house the homeless?
The Village of Downers Grove is not set up to house people. We don't have any vehicle for that, whether it's facilities or staffing or any other resources to be in the business of housing the homeless. It's also very much removed from what the Village of Downers Grove is set up to do. Even if we wanted and had the resources for our organization is not set up at all to be a housing organization. We rely heavily on partner organizations, such as the folks up here, and really PADS. So the answer to it.
Okay, thank you. One more question from the audience here. What will happen to the homeless here? Why don't they want us here? The question is, what will happen to the homeless here? Why don't they want us here?
Well, let me touch on that. I don't know exactly where that comes from or where that's headed, but in Downers Grove, we, at least from the village's standpoint, we believe that all the homeless have all the same rights and privileges that every other resident has. It is not illegal to be homeless. It is not illegal to be in a place. We try very hard to do two things. One, make connections. Help people who are homeless be aware of and access the resources that are out there that are providing help, whether it's shelter or other services that are needed. But at the end of the day, we try as best we can to treat every person exactly the same. And so a homeless person in Downers Grove and downtown who's chosen to spend their time in our downtown is not shooed out of downtown. They're not asked to leave downtown. We treat every person the same and only treat behaviors. So if somebody has been asked to leave downtown or been asked to move from a spot, it's been behavior driven.
Thank you.
I'm actually going to build on schools because, one of the things we strive for in District 99 is that we're somebody's last school. Like, we see a lot of our homeless students with a high mobility rate. They're bouncing from place to place. It's hard to find stability. And one of the things our staff really prides itself on is that when we get a homeless student, we want to keep them. We want them to stop that cycle of moving from district to district and losing continuity in their educational experience. So that's kind of a philosophy that we're built on, is not to pass them off, not to let them leave, but try to encircle them with services and make them want to stay with us, because we know that that's their best chance for long-term success.
Yeah, I don't know. The question just made me think of a couple of conversations that I've had. Excuse me, a couple of conversations that I've had with clients coming in, and sometimes it's the feeling of not being wanted, but it's also the feeling of not being seen. That people don't want to acknowledge that this is happening in their community and that this is a person who has all their belongings with them. And I think it goes a long way to, and this is not me just pushing my agenda, it goes a long way to acknowledge people, to volunteer. I have talked with first-time clients who come in and actually with a sense of awe and wonder say that, you guys are primarily a volunteer organization. You mean that people out there know about people like me. So I think part of it is just acknowledging that it is an issue and that people who are homeless obviously still have value and are still part of the fabric of the community.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Another question, and this can be for anyone feel free to answer this one. Is there anything good, well-meaning people are doing that might be trying to help but are actually adding to the problem? Like, are blessing bags okay? Bags with snacks or socks, or is there anything that makes sense? The question.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Again, I think Hank alluded to it earlier, especially when we're dealing with kids in middle school and in high school. I think so many people want to donate things to them, but I think children all take great pride in their personal identity and what makes them unique. And so gift cards go a much longer way than perhaps a donated bag or something like that. No matter what situation a child is in, their personal identity is so very important to them, and that ability to make their own purchase or to get that thing that's unique to them. So that would be, I think, a perfect example where everybody's got the best intentions by making donations. But if we could find a way where we could allow the children to, have some ownership of that and to pick their own things, I think that does go a very long way.
I want to just go off of that. So the holidays are approaching. And I'm not sure if everyone knows, but Catholic Charities has a holiday outreach program, as do a lot of other agencies in the area. And so to go off of that point, we get a lot of donations for that, and that's wonderful. We love donations. We don't stop giving donations because we give those out to the families and individuals we serve. However, I would say 90% of our donations are baby children's toys, from 0 to 5 years old. And so we work with families, and they do have kids that are 10, 11, 12, 13, 17 years old. And so, gift cards, experiences, going to the movies, that is something that I think sometimes we forget about, that kids want to do. Yes, they of course want clothing, they want something that says Under Armour on it, but they also want to go to the movies, and they want to go get some, lunch out somewhere nice with their friends. And so, we just need to bring it back to someone who is homeless. That doesn't mean that they have different, wants than somebody who's not homeless. They are people. They have the same types of wants and desires that we all do. So just to keep that in mind when you are donating things.
I think also the blessing bags are wonderful, but I also think that for them to be really effective and have impact, it's sometimes nice for organizations and the faith community to reach out to other nonprofits, because sometimes we have an idea of that need that a family or individual may have. Like for example, we've had people who put together bags that have toiletry items, and that may not seem like the most exciting thing, but when you don't have deodorant, when you don't have toothpaste or a toothbrush, it's a small thing, but it can be a barrier to moving forward. I mean, it's self-esteem, it's how you present yourself when you're going for a job. So, there will be times when we will, get a blessing bag and it may have vitamins, which is great, but I think there's some other pressing needs before we get to that. So that makes sense. I think they're wonderful, but if we could work in partnership.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, this next question for the audience is probably for Amy, Bob, and Janelle. Homelessness prevention and diversion funds from the state have gone down. What has Downers Grove done to augment this, and what can Downers Grove do to increase affordable housing?
So homeless prevention funds actually were increased this year, so which is a wonderful thing. I think it was a $9 million increase. So obviously that's not just for Catholic Charities, but all other organizations in the state. And so, yes, we did get a bump in our prevention dollars. So I'm not sure how much everyone knows about homeless prevention funds, but it sounds like what it is. So, if you are housed, our goal is to keep you housed. So our goal is to not have this individual or this family experience homelessness. And so if you have some kind of an emergency, Catholic Charities or many other organizations in the county are going to try to help you pay your rent because you had to pay something else, or a medical bill, or a very serious car repair, whatever it might have been. So those funding, like I said, those funds did go up.
Actually, I will take this from a school perspective. One of the things that has not gone down, in fact, has increased, is the money available for low-income students. So Illinois has just completely revamped its school funding formula. It's called the evidence-based funding model. So the more low-income students you have in your school district, the more funds you get first compared to districts that have more availability. So at Downers Grove, for instance, we don't have the same numbers of low-income students that you would find in other areas of Illinois, but when you're talking general statewide, the Illinois, the School Board Association and the State Board of Education has really looked at this and tried to fix that. But the school district also, no matter what, your total percent of low-income students, we do get federal assistance in the form of Title I funds. And in Title I funds, which have not gone down, it is based on your low-income number that you have in your school district as the number of funds. So both District 58 and District 99 do receive Title I funds, and we do use those funds for low-income students and homeless students. So that's another thing that we do in the school district. So that funding hasn't decreased. And then also our free and reduced lunch. So if a child cannot afford lunch or breakfast at our schools, those are provided, and those funds have not gone down from the state. In fact, those have increased. So we are able to continue that funding at the school district.
We don't receive state funding. We receive, we don't receive state funding. We receive a little funding from the county, and we saw an increase this year over last year, which for us is really important because we're also seeing an increase in the number of clients who are coming in, particularly families with immigrants.
Does anyone care to answer the second part of that? What can Downers Grove do to increase affordable housing? The second part of the question.
That was a weird question.
I was just saying.
So Downers, as I mentioned earlier, Downers Grove as a village is not in the business of providing housing. The question of affordable housing is one that is, we could spend 3 hours trying to define exactly what affordable housing means. We have spent some time and effort as a community a few years ago to try and put together a group of residents and people who had some expertise in understanding what affordable housing means, and things that can be done from a legislative standpoint and the powers we have to impact that environment, that market. The result of that effort is that we didn't really have a role. So the village currently is not playing a role in housing, either providing it, subsidizing it, or trying to ensure certain accessibility.
Okay. Are there any businesses in town that you know actively support the homeless community, whether through employment, donating to local organizations?
There are.
Not quite sure. I I know that, speaking from Catholic Charities, we do receive, a lot of donations from places like Panera and Starbucks, and, we utilize those at our shelter, which is not here in Villa Park. But we regularly get those types of donations, and some grocery stores like Aldi work with Northern Illinois Food Bank, and so they also, we have volunteers that go pick up food weekly or even sometimes twice a week, and then we can utilize that at our shelter and even provide it to some of the families that we work with. So,
I mean, we have a long list of community partners that help us do what we do. Otherwise, we just wouldn't have an organization. But as far as those who partner with us to make sure that we can provide services to the folks who are coming in, there's Walgreens, there's Main Street Pharmacy that works with us to provide the medication for folks, Westmont Vision. Midwestern University is a tremendous partner of ours where we're sending people there for oral health care, vision. We have a new partnership with them, and they're helping us with a lot of our health education. Again, that part of managing physical, mental, and emotional health. But yeah, we also have I'm just trying to go through all our programs. We do a lot of grassroots recruitment events, so UPS is great. I just went over to their, Westmont location, was talking with them, and they've come in to do that initial hiring interview process. Home Helpers is another, actually just here in downtown Downers Grove, that will come in and interview and hire clients. So there are quite a few businesses that work with us.
Yes, I would say whoever asked that question, please talk to Janelle. She'll give you a whole list.
We also have the banks.
Oh, yes. The banks, again, without community partners, we wouldn't have a lot of our programs. So for our financial literacy program, which is called Pathways to Financial Health, we have about 10 different banks that work with us. Community Bank of Downers Grove is, again, a tremendous partner. They come in and they sit one-on-one with clients. They do workshops talking that address money management, credit repair. So there's several different banks in the area that work with us. Thank you, Sarah. She's also I have a plant. She's also.
Thank you. This can be a question for any of you. What vocational educational opportunities are currently available to the homeless community in DuPage County or Downers Grove?
Well, we can certainly talk from a school district perspective. And I'll let Hank talk more about the high school setting, because there has been a shift from college for all over the last few years. But certainly in terms of the educational opportunities that we afford students, it doesn't matter your income level. You are going to have access to the exact same programs any student would have in our school district. As students progress, though, through the elementary district into the high school, obviously there becomes more of a focus on career. So I'll let Hank talk about that.
Yeah, so there's been a major shift over the last few years in education in general in Illinois to focus on making sure that all of our students are both college and career ready. The mindset is that anytime during somebody's life, they're going to have to do two things. They're going to work, hopefully, and they're going to have to continue to learn. And those things sometimes happen in partnership, they sometimes happen in different orders, but we want to make sure that all of our students are prepared to do that for the rest of their lives. So there's a big focus on what the research says that the skills are that all students have to get there, and understanding that that is unique for each child as they move into adulthood. And then for us, some of our greatest partnership is with the College of DuPage. You know, as students move there and want to move on and get some more experience, and College of DuPage is recently very active in trying to figure out how workplace readiness fits into their programming. I've met with their new university president several times to talk about this. And we're also looking at being more active at the high school level. So We're investing more in internships. We have a college and career center in each of our schools that has traditionally been a college center. But in the last couple of years, we've started to bring in trades to meet with students. We've started to bring in businesses in the community to meet with students, to share with them the range of job opportunities that they have within some, especially some of our larger community businesses, so that students can start to see there's some options right here in our community where they could go right into the world of work, or they could go part-time at COD and work part-time, or they could go off to a 4-year college experience or the military and start to understand that there's a full range of opportunities available to you. That college isn't the only, a 4-year college isn't the only choice sitting there for you when you leave our schools.
So, as part of our Pathways to Employment program, it's kind of under that program, we've worked with a couple of organizations in the community, and I'm probably not going to say their name right, but there's the Association of Builders and Contractors, I think I have that right, and they have an apprenticeship program. So we've held workshops for all of our clients to come in and find out about that. We have worked with College of DuPage and the College of DuPage Foundation, and talk about the money that is available to go into to get a 2-year degree or to get some of the certifications. We had a lot of people who were interested in trucking and to get their CDL license and to get a CNA. We've also worked with WorkNet DuPage, and they're a resource in the community. I believe they're in Lyle, and they've come in and done a couple of workshops with us. And unfortunately, it's just gone right out of my head. There is money available for people who income qualify, and a lot of the homeless would income qualify in order to get some of the funding to go into some of the training programs. And honestly, that is a barrier. There is a need. There are wonderful training programs, but you have to have the funding in order to get into the programs. For us as an organization, one of the new focuses for our employment program is to get community partners who are willing to have apprenticeships and work with some of our clients. And we're talking with we have a couple of new board members who are looking at reaching out to engineering firms to see if they would work with folks. So there are resources out there. Those are the ones that I know.
I was just going to add to a little bit more of an explanation. The Village's role, as I was talking about before, is really those acute crisis situations. So which businesses are supportive of the partners that we end up engaging, whether it's PADS or Homes Front Door or Family Shelter Services, we don't necessarily know. And it's the same with some of the vocational trainings and the opportunities for helping people transition from homeless to non-homeless, or employed or unemployed, or unemployed and employed, et cetera. Because our interaction is in that crisis mode, that's sort of one step removed where the village fits into this puzzle. So we're trying to help people in those immediate, where their safety is in jeopardy situations, and help them find a spot that's safe. At that point, there's typically partner organizations that take them all, and I'm certain they are all, there's a lot of businesses that are helping, there's a lot of residents that are helping, they're mostly volunteer activities.
I was just going to add that a lot of agencies also have employment counselors, and so Catholic Charities has an employment counselor, and PADS does as well, and so, that employee is working with our clients who, many of them are homeless in our current housing programs, and so a lot of the focus is really getting people to be job ready. And so another agency that I actually have not mentioned is the People's Resource Center. And so they have a lot of programs that are fantastic, and ESL classes. They have classes on how to use computer, Excel, Word. These are programs that people do need to know to become job ready. And so that is a very big focus, and also any kind of certificate program. School for a shorter amount of time, leaving, making the same amount of money possibly, and not having a significant amount of debt. So we think that's a great idea. Yes.
Thank you. Very comprehensive answers. Thank you.
Next question from the audience. We often encounter homeless adults when walking around the downtown area at night or during inclement weather. What can I do as an individual to help? How do I assist? What are the services I can refer these individuals to?
So, from a village standpoint, what you can do to help first is find some of these organizations like PADS, Front Door, and others to help them, whether it's donations or volunteering time. That's really the biggest thing that you can do. When those folks are here in our community, we are aware. We are in touch with them. We have information that we provide. We provide a lot of rides. The conversation was earlier about transportation. One of the things that our police department does a lot of is provide rides to people to get them to shelters. They're not unseen. They're not unknown. They are in sort of the network of our patrol operations. So if you see somebody that you think is really in trouble, you should dial 911. But if the question is sort of more generic, what more can I do to help that person or the person I saw yesterday find shelter, help support these organizations. We are putting them in touch with those organizations.
And just to add to that, so DuPage PADS also has a street outreach program. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. So, you know, if you are in the area and you see somebody who is homeless in the same spot every day, you know, you're driving on your way to work, see somebody in the same place, you can call this number and then their staff at PADS will take down the information and then they will go out and attempt to engage with that particular person. So that is just another thing that you can do. You know, if there's some reason as to why you are not going to engage yourself, which I would not always recommend doing if you're not comfortable, and the person themselves might not be comfortable or wanting to engage with you. So it's important that PADS has staff that are trained and that have all of the resources available, and so that they can go and try to outreach to somebody who might be homeless.
And definitely send them in our direction. That's what we're here for. Again, if it's something that we can provide immediately, obviously we're going to help them. If not, we're going to link them with some other resources out there. So I think that sending folks in the front door cafeteria is a good first step in giving them a solution or advice.
We have, before coming up to the hour, so I've got a few more questions. If anyone has any other questions, give them now because we're going to be almost finished up here. For Mayor Barnett, what is the view of Downers Grove Village government toward the creation of a day site, similar to the site in Wheaton operated by PADS?
I'm going to be a little bit cautious and a little bit politicky because now we're looking for opinion. And so what I'm trying to do is provide information about what is going on and what the village does do. Opinion is we have a 7-member village council, and so you all have to weigh it, so I can just kind of give you my opinion. But that, I've spent some time at a Wheaton facility, and from my personal viewpoint, it's a mayor, but I'm not speaking for the village government, a day center like that is a critical part of the equation, because what the folks at PADS are really trying to do is help people transition, is help people move on. But what does that mean? If you get up in the morning and you've successfully had shelter last night, that's a good thing. But now what? Do you have the opportunity to make a connection, to find a job? Do you have the opportunity to brush your teeth in the morning? I mean, there are some very basic things that facility in particular adds to the equation, and I think probably it would be great if there were more regional opportunities for that. That said, in my opinion, is not necessarily the village government opinion. It's very important to understand that. We do have a very narrow scope of operation as a village government. It's police, it's fire, it's public works. It's largely basic unseen services and crisis management. And so that is very different. That's not to suggest that the village should be in the business of running a day center, but I personally think it would be a good thing, and certainly be trying to not be in the way of such a thing.
This question is for Janelle. Aside from the lack of affordable housing, what do you see as the largest contributor to becoming homeless?
what I see that are two of the primary issues are living wage employment is problematic. We have a lot of, like I mentioned, we help folks who are homeless, we help people who are underemployed. So we see a lot of the working poor coming in, and their margin to weather some type of financial storm is razor thin. So I think living wages is an issue. I will also say that addressing mental health issues is a huge, could have a really positive impact on the homeless population. So those are the two areas that I think really need to be addressed in order to see some improvements.
Yeah, going along with that, I think that, you know, something that we need to do a better job of is prevention services. So again, like I mentioned before, just trying to not even let somebody experience homelessness. And there are a lot, I mean, all things that are contributing factors and large factors, and people are not making enough money and are not able to get the jobs to get affordable housing, which affordable housing is not even available really in DuPage County. So those are all obviously issues, you know, but I think that prevention is really where we can try to do a better job of minimizing the experience altogether. So, I answer the question.
Thank you.
Actually, I want to say something really quick. So just on that note, and so to touch on some of the other questions that people asked, I did bring a flyer that I set out front. So it sounds like a lot of people would just want to know about resources and, you know, who should I tell people to call. And so this is actually from the DuPage County Continuum of Care. So these are access points for DuPage County, and so this is who you call. So if somebody is homeless or somebody is at risk of being homelessness, you would want to direct them to these access points. So that's DuPage County, Catholic Charities, Path Street Outreach, what I mentioned earlier, their phone number is on here, Family Shelter for Domestic Violence, but you know, these are the resources that we need to be giving people quickly so we can connect them with agencies so that we can help try to get them.
And you talked about affordable housing too, and there's an organization, acronyms CHAD, and I wrote it down, but it's Community Housing Advocacy Development. They do a lot with actually placing people into affordable housing. They have funding, they bought properties and things like that. So that would be another really good resource. And it looks like people are struggling to access affordable housing. They have a full website of houses and townhomes and all that that are available that are pretty reasonably priced.
And they cover the entire county, so they're not just limited to one town.
Right.
Thank you. Question. I'm in the troop 89 Boy Scouts. What can we do to help?
I think one of the things, you know, for young kids is there's often a disconnect between children who live in homes and children who may be in temporary situations. The kids who are in temporary situations or in low-income housing are more than likely not going to be the ones who are invited to the birthday parties. They're going to be the ones who aren't invited because they don't have connections to sports teams and things like that. So I think one of the biggest things that we can do for our younger kids is to make sure that we still give them access to Park District programs. We still give them access to the YMCA. We still invite them to those things so they don't feel further isolated from their other kids. We tend to, you know, hang out with just kids in the neighborhood or just kids who are in houses, and we sometimes forget about those other kids. So I think really giving them access to those same things that, quite frankly, kids like mine have access to, and not forgetting about those kids and making sure that we include them. It's a very small thing, but that really does go a long way for our kids. So what I would suggest to all of our kids in District 58 schools is to make sure that we're including all those kids and not forgetting about those kids who we might not see in our neighborhoods.
I think, you know, at Homelessness, we always have different projects. We have different drives, whether it's, I mentioned toiletry drives, where we ask people to gather them and put together packets. We have infant care drives. We will have a toys drive as well. So there's different ways to actually get some hands-on and gather items and put together packages for folks who have a need. And I will just say, to take that on, just to kind of be aware that, again, as kids, that maybe not everyone that you go to school with will have the same opportunities and resources that you have. I remember one of our clients who was homeless and at PADS, and there was a volunteer group of youth that came in and recognized her daughter as somebody they went to school with. And so they went up to her younger daughter and said, if we were ever mean to your sister, tell her we're sorry. So just to be aware that, you know, sometimes if folks are, or kids are wearing clothes that are not the current fashion, like you were mentioning, it's there's some reasons behind that, and just to be kind.
That extends beyond just the homeless. You know, we're about 25% of our students are on free or reduced lunch, right? So, you know, they're just looking at a lot of our students. We're the only spot where there's guaranteed food every day, right? So, I think, you know, we've really made a concerted effort in District 99 to start to understand that equity and inclusion goes beyond race. It goes to also understanding economic status and being accepting of all those students that are around you. And there's a good portion of our students that don't have the same set of resources that the other kids have. And just understanding that and being accepting of that and being open to helping their peers is something that we're strongly encouraging across our district.
Can I add to that?
Oh, actually, we have just time for one more question, okay? Thank you so much. So last question for the panelists, since we are running a long time here. What plans does your organization have for the future in addressing homelessness here? Last one.
I'll start that. The village will continue to do what we do. It's important, and we do a lot of emergency shelter stuff. It is not really part of our structure, but the truth of the matter is there are folks that need help at 1 o'clock in the morning. They can't get into a PADS facility. There are some folks who are not able to get into a PADS facility because of the arrangements with PADS. And so we are constantly engaged and aware and alert and trying to interact with folks that look like they're in trouble. That street outreach is something we are regularly in touch with. If you see somebody that's on the street that you've seen a couple of days, the odds are really good the Downers Grove Police Department has gotten PADS street outreach involved. We will continue to do that. Our primary goal and our primary responsibility is the immediate safety of everybody in our community, homeless and non-homeless alike, and we'll continue to do that.
I think for both school districts, one of the things that I want the community to understand is just how close we work together and to increase those partnerships. So, you know, when District 99 registers a homeless student, they often have elementary children. And so rather than both government entities doing the exact same work, how can we continue to combine our services? How can we share services so we're working together and working smarter for those individuals? Hank alluded to it earlier. Helping identify people is homeless and when they're in those temporary situations so we can get them those resources is another big push that we're doing in school districts so we can get people that immediate help and not find out about it 4 or 5 months down the road. Also, one of the things that both districts are doing with title funds and things like that is to really educate parents and provide opportunities that you would see at Catholic Charities or Hope Front Door about financial literacy and where they can go, things like that to really help break that cycle of poverty. But both school districts will continue to work very closely together to combine our efforts.
And just to build a little bit on one of the things that you mentioned real quick, that if you don't know how schools function, you might not have picked up on it. when families show up and establish in District 99 or any of our 5 partner elementary school districts, if a family shows up at any of our districts and establishes that they are homeless, they don't have to do it again at the other partner district. We call over to the other school and say, we've already established it, it's done. So that limits some of the stigma and the paperwork and the process. It's already been validated, it's done, start taking care of this family. So, and that reflects a lot of the care and flexibility that we offer. And I think that's the biggest thing, is continuing to understand that this is a changing dynamic, that each family and each student is unique. So sometimes we have to be really creative inside of the school structure to make sure that it works best for that student and those families. And that's kind of the continued ongoing thing for us, is understanding that we'll never understand this completely, we'll never completely have all the resources we need or the knowledge we need, but we're going to continue to keep a mindset that we're going to keep improving for these students and these families.
I think for Host Front Door, it's a couple of things. Continuing to do what we're doing now, making sure that people in need have access to some of those basic essentials. The other part is, growing our education and empowerment programs, particularly the one that I mentioned earlier, Pathways to Wellbeing, that concentrates on that emotional, mental, and physical health, and helping people plan and organize it, so that perhaps they can move beyond crisis living. But I think the other thing for us that's really important is to make sure that we have really strong community partnerships with other organizations in DuPage County, because often I think there is a misconception that there's not a need in DuPage County, so funding doesn't always flow our way, so we have to be very thoughtful and focused on what we do and making sure that we're not recreating the wheel and reproducing what somebody else does, and that our programs are complementing each other, and that we know what everyone else is doing, so that we can make sure that we can convey that to the people who are coming in who need help.
Just going off of that for Catholic Charities, again, the partnerships are important. So there's not an unlimited amount of money to assist people who are at risk or who are homeless. And so Catholic Charities is always trying to assist as many people as we can. And, that might be with, trying to work with another agency to put together a package so that we can get that family who's homeless into a new apartment. Some other things that Catholic Charities is looking to do, again, continue what we are doing, but we're always looking at different grant opportunities to help serve, some of the changing populations that we are seeing. So, for instance, our immigrant support program has been in operation for a year, and so obviously with everything that's been going on, that is a new program, and we saw that that's a need, and so we have created that program. We're also looking to increase our transitional housing units. So right now we have 18 different units or apartments in DuPage County for transitional housing. So that program would be appropriate for someone who just needs a little bit more time to go to school, or to get a certificate in a different program, or to try to increase their income or pay off debts. And so those programs are definitely in need. And so we have different program partners who help with funding for those. So we're always trying to increase those programs.
Well, thank you. Panelists, your input has been invaluable to us. And on behalf of our community members and the Downers Public Library, we thank you for taking the time to answer our questions. And we hope that this panel has helped answer some of your questions and increase your awareness of the issue of homelessness in Downers Grove. For those of you here tonight who want to do more than just talk about it, we also have a volunteer fair on October 20th. That's next Sunday, a couple Sundays from now, in the afternoon from 2 to 4. So Hope Front Door will be there. There'll be some other organizations locally who'd like to participate. Thank you again, panelists.